Okay, welcome to the Wild Animal Sanctuary. My name's Pat Craig. I'm the Executive Director, and we're here live at the Wild Animal Sanctuary, which is located just outside of Denver, Colorado. And we're looking into an African lion habitat that has a whole pride of rescued African lions. This female's name is Xena, and she was rescued out of Mexico. Came from a circus that then dumped her at a zoo that eventually closed down. But she was rescued along with many of the other lions that are in this habitat. And what we do is we actually take these animals in and we rehabilitate them, take care of all their medical needs so that they can then be released into a large natural habitat like this and be able to live as close to being in the wild as possible. Xena is coming closer towards us, and she's going to join up with one of the males that's in this pride. And both Xena and Orion is the male that she's coming up to. Came out of Mexico just like her story, and so this pride primarily has members that made up from different rescues throughout the country of Mexico. And so here at the Wild Animal Sanctuary, we have a 720-acre refuge that is a non-profit organization that rescues these kinds of animals: lions, tigers, bears, wolves, leopards, mountain lions, primarily large carnivores, just like Xena. And what we do is take them when they come in, they're all skin and bone at the time and very malnourished, and rehabilitate them so that they can live more naturally like this. And so this pride has 5 members that live together. And so what we do is take in these kinds of animals and take the time to go through the medical exams, make sure that they're all good as far as that control is concerned, and then we do implants to keep them from reproducing, of course, because all these are rescued animals. These can't be turned back into the wild, even though we would love to see these lions and roaming freely in Africa. There's many reasons that they can't be released into the wild. Some of that revolves around the fact that they were raised by humans, and so they're used to the human being around, and they'd walk right up to the first person they saw. But other than that, many of them are declawed or have broken teeth and have other medical issues that would prevent them from being able to hunt very well. So I'm going to scoot back over here to Xena, and she's heading out this way. And there's another female coming down to meet her. Let me see if I can get her in the shot. Here we go. This is Malka, and Malka is coming to join her. And so Malka was another female lion out of Mexico. And so we have lions that we rescue from all over the United States, as well as we've done throughout South America and Latin America, and we've even rescued a pride of lions from Spain that lives next to this pride. And these animals, they actually get to live and be like wild lions to a point of at least living in a pride with a king and a dominant female. And then everybody has a hierarchy from there where they fit in and different structure of as far as where they fit in the pride itself. So here's the male Orion and Xena. And so basically they're right next to another pride who's on this side. And this has 4 or 5 males that are down here checking out what's going on and trying to compete a little bit. You can see they have a little competition going on between the fence. And that's normal, a lot like it would be in the wild where males compete for territory. And so while those boys are talking to each other to make sure they're not encroaching on each other's territory, 2 of the girls have gone back up into the middle of the habitat. And so here and located just outside of Denver, Colorado, we have over 450 large carnivores that live here. And so we have around 80 African lions, about 65 tigers that live here. We have, of course, like I said, leopards and wolves and all sorts of other animals that have been rescued and get to live in natural spaces. And that's one of the things that we specialize in, is providing a nice, special, more natural life for these guys rather than just being stuck in a cage somewhere. They all came from pretty terrible cages, and then they were rehabilitated and released into these spaces. And so this is a family group. This female's name is Gigi, and she's a white female lion, which is fairly rare. She also came out of Mexico and was sold as a pet to somebody, and of course, being rare white lion like this, it was a prized animal that only very affluent people could afford to buy down there, and of course it didn't work out as a pet. So many of these animals that people buy thinking that they're going to be able to keep them as a pet. One of these females was given to a 3-year-old girl for her birthday as a cub, and so of course that didn't work out. It only took a couple of weeks before that turned sour, and everybody realized that a lion and a 3-year-old, even if it was a cub, wasn't a good idea. So anyway, these animals basically get to live here the rest of their life. They don't get to go back to the wild, like we said, and we do control it so they don't breed, but they do get to live and roam freely here, and we provide the food for them so they don't have to hunt on their own. But we want to make sure that they're healthy, and we have a full-time veterinary staff here in our own veterinary hospital, and with over 450 large carnivores, we're always busy trying to make sure everybody's well cared for and fed well. We currently feed about 50,000 pounds of food a week. And so you can imagine what that's like trying to deal with that. And so our organization, like I said earlier, is a nonprofit organization, and we have over 160 volunteers that work here, and quite a few paid staff that help take care of the animals and help raise funds for the animals, because, as I said, we don't receive any kind of government funding or grants or things like that. This is all through public donations, and we're live on the dodo today because they are gracious enough to let us tell our story about the animals that live here. And so this female is thinking about joining back with the others. And again, this is Xena right here. She says, I'm looking for a little scrap. We gave them a couple of treats to play with while they're here filming them. So we are live right now at the Wild Animal Sanctuary located outside of Denver, Colorado. It's a 720-acre refuge. It has 450 large carnivores that live here. We currently are always expanding and rescuing more animals. We rescue upwards of 100 animals a year from terrible situations, and so it's one of those things that we even actually have to turn down animals on a regular basis because there's so many of these animals that are outside the public zoo system in the United States and now around the world, where it used to be they were only in the wild and some were in zoos and that was it. But starting about 35 years ago here in the United States, people started to get these animals in the private sector and then breed them and sell them as pets and try to make money off of them. And so unfortunately, many of these animals ended up in basements and apartments and garages and terrible places like that. And so they suffered greatly until the law enforcement would come in, and they'd either end up biting somebody or escaping, and then that's when we'd find out that they needed a home, and most of them would either be euthanized if they weren't able to go to a sanctuary. And so our organization, like I said, is called the Wild Animal Sanctuary, and we're located in Keenesburg, Colorado. There are a handful of other sanctuaries around the country that also take in animals. Obviously there's elephant sanctuaries and farm animal sanctuaries, and there are other sanctuaries that do take in some carnivores, different levels of them in different places around the country. We're located outside of Denver, Colorado, and a lot of people always wonder how the animals do during this in our kind of climate. And believe it or not, lions like this are very hardy, do extremely well in cold weather. They all have heated dens to go into so they can stay nice and warm in the winter if they want, but they actually acclimate really well, and then they basically live and play in the snow and actually like to roll around and play in it because their hair grows longer as it gets colder, and so they have no trouble acclimating. Lions used to roam throughout Europe, and before they all got taken and captured or killed by the Romans. And so really most of us have grown up in the last 100 years learning that lions only live in Africa, but that's not necessarily true. And the American continents at one point a long time ago even had lion species that roamed here. And so these African lions have no trouble living here in Colorado and do very well in this savanna type setting. We're on the grasslands northeast of Denver and not up in the mountains, and so out here this is very much like the grassland that they would normally live in. And so we take in these animals and get them rehabilitated, and they live together in nice family groups, and they'll stay that way for the rest of their lives, and there's no reason to compete. We address all the important things that are important to keep these animals happy and safe. Of course, we feed more than enough food so they don't ever feel like they need to compete or fight for food. And then we also give them more than enough territory so that there's never a feeling that they're confined or crowded or anything like that. This particular pride has 20 acres that they live on. And then the last thing is the breeding rights. Of course, African lions like to compete. Males, only one male can breed in a pride, and so as long as we put implants in the females so they don't cycle, then the males do not argue about anything. I'm going to switch over to here. This is Bartolo. He's one of the African lions that lives next door, and he was rescued from Spain. And so he's watching what's going on with his neighbors and keeping a close eye, of course, because he has to guard his territory. And Bartolo is an adult male lion, and there are 5 males in this pride, and that's not unusual. In the wild, there's many prides, if not all prides, have multiple males. There's just one male that's the king, and only one male that gets to breed, and then eventually gets ousted by the younger males, and the cycle repeats itself. And so over here, since we don't breed anything and none of the girls cycle, and they have plenty of food and plenty of space, the boys don't have anything to compete over, and so basically they can get along very well and not have to argue with each other. I'm going to go back to Orion in the first pride that we were at. So this is Orion. He's the dominant male, the king of this pride. And he's just surveying and making sure everything's fine with his girls and his family. And he's keeping a close eye. You can see how intently he's watching everything. And so the Wild Animal Sanctuary, for those of you just joining us again, we're on the Dodo. We really appreciate the opportunity to broadcast in a live segment. We're on Mountain Standard Time right now, or Daylight Time, and so right now it's just a little after 7 p.m. and these lions are enjoying a nice cool evening. This time of year can get pretty warm out on the plains of Colorado, and it's fairly dry out here, so this replicates their dry savanna very closely. So right now the clouds are out and everybody's enjoying the cooler weather. I'm going to come down here to Gigi, who's really close to us, and get a close-up of her. And Gigi's a female lion. She's a white lion, and that's not an albino, that's just a recessive gene, and so there are white lions. They're pretty rare, but they are out there, and she happens to be the only white one we have right now. We have another white one that we're about to rescue out of Mexico. And then currently, as I said, we're always rescuing animals. We have a number of animals out of the state that we'll be going probably next week to rescue. Includes quite a few large carnivores. And so for the sanctuary, that's a full-time job. And again, we feed upwards of about 50,000 pounds of meat a week here. And that's all USDA grade A meat. There's no downed animals or feedlot animals or anything like that. That's same kind of USDA steaks and roasts and things that we all get. And these guys are having a great time running. He's playing with her. And now he's going to come back over. So he's exercising his male authority here to make sure that the lions next door know not to mess with his girlfriends. And everybody has to tell everybody what for. And they're used to doing this, and this is something that they do to protect their territory. And a lot of it has to do with that we're here filming them right now. And when the boys are giving each other grief, the girls will tend to back off, because that's what the boys' job is to guard the territory and make sure that everything's safe for them. And so basically, we really appreciate everybody who does follow the sanctuary and support us. You can follow us on Facebook, or you can go to our website, which is wildanimalsanctuary.org. You can learn more about the animals here and all the different species that live here. We have over 200 bears that are rescued that live here. And we have many other species, all the way from bobcats and lynx and fox and coyotes and wolves to many of the big cats and small cats. But the main thing that makes us different than probably all the other places that you would be familiar with is that we do give all of our animals large acreage habitats like this to live in rather than cages. And then we also have an elevated walkway, and that's how people who visit the sanctuary can see the animals without disturbing them. I'll show you off in the distance. This is the walkway, and there's a visitor up on the walkway. And that's about a quarter mile away. Our sanctuary is 720 acres, and so it's a long ways from where these lions are right here. But it gives you an idea that people can visit, and that walkway does go over many of the habitats, and so you'll be able to see the animals and learn about their rescue stories. But at the same time, when you're elevated like that, you don't bother the animals. There's no pressure put on them, so they're the normal pacing that you would see in a zoo. You're not going to find that here because these animals don't feel that that's a threat to their territory. And so we would love to have you learn more about the sanctuary, and we appreciate what the dodo does as far as helping animals through educating the public and making sure that people understand there's organizations like ours out there, as well as many other people that want to help and save animals like this rather than seeing them dying. Many of these suffered greatly living in apartments and garages and basements, and these came from a really dilapidated zoo that was closed down. And so either way, it's an important work, and we really appreciate everybody going to our website again at wildanimalsanctuary.org and learning more about us on our Facebook as well. And we post daily posts there, and we appreciate the dodo letting us come here. And so at this point, we're probably going to wrap this up and say goodnight. But thank you all for joining us and learning more about the work that we do here and the animals that live here.